2021 meeting of the Planning Commission Working Group to order. Mr. Leininger, would you please call the roll? Or Ms. Cook, are you on the call?
I am, yes.
Oh, okay. Ms. Cook, please call the roll.
Sure. Mr. O'Connor?
Present.
Mr. O'Connor is an at-large member. Ms. Leverins?
Here.
Ms. Leverins is also an at-large member. Mr. Polster?
Here.
Mr. Polster represents the Jamestown district. Dr. Rose?
Here.
Dr. Rose represents the Roberts district. Ms. Null?
Present.
Ms. Null represents the Stonehouse district. Mr. Haldeman?
Here.
Mr. Haldeman represents the Berkeley district and is chair of the Planning Commission. Ms. Wortman?
Here.
Ms. Wortman represents the community participation team. Mr. Kropp is not in attendance, but there is a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As a reminder, if you'd like to speak on any topics, please use the raise your hand function at the bottom of your screen. You've all received a resolution for virtual meeting in your packet. On April 13th, 2021, the board readopted the continuity of government ordinance, which under certain circumstances permits this committee to conduct today's meeting by electronic or telephonic means without a quorum of members physically present. May I please have a motion for adoption of that resolution for tonight's meeting?
So moved, Barbara.
Thank you, Barbara. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Cook, would you please introduce staff and consultants?
Yes, I am Ellen Cook, Principal Planner, and joining me today from James City County are Paul Holt, Tammy Rosario, Thomas Wysong, Tom Leininger, Tori Haynes, Terry Costello, Jose Hibero, and John Reisinger. Also joining us are our partners in this comprehensive plan update, our consultants Vlad Gavrilovic and Todd Gordon from EPRPC, and Leanne King from Clarion Associates. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Although these meetings have not had a dedicated public comment period, we did allow public comment to be collected through several means. Ms. Cook, aside from the one letter that's in our packet, were any other public comments received?
No, there were not.
Great, thank you. We're now at approval of minutes, of which there were none. So we'll move over to the business of the evening. Land use chapter materials, Mr. Wysong, Mr. Leininger, and Ms. Haynes.
Yes, sir. Well, good afternoon to the working group. This meeting will be a continuation of the review and discussion of certain components of the land use section materials. Next slide, please. The items for review today are revisions to the technical report, the community guidance summary, and the goals, strategies, and actions. Next slide, please. Regarding the technical report, staff has made several revisions, which include expanding the introduction section to include references to the land use goals, strategies, and actions, adding paragraphs regarding the promotion of infill development, and a paragraph for open space, adding considerations for implementing rural lands protections, as well as some other wording and grammar recommendations that we received from the working group. Next slide, please. For community guidance, staff has provided the updated summary document of public input, which includes the scientific survey and all 3 rounds of community engagement. A narrative summary of the community guidance is now included within the chapter text as well. And now I'm happy to turn things over to Tori, who will be presenting information on the goals, strategies, and actions for land use.
Thank you, Thomas. The following revisions were made to the GSAs based on the working group's comments at the February 22nd meeting. Some minor grammatical edits were made throughout. Under LU 1.7, an action item was added to address short-term rentals. Under LU 1.8, an action item was added to address the use of conceptual plans as part of the development process. LU 4.4 and 4.5 were combined into a single item. And under LU 6.1.8, an action item was added regarding lands in the Lower Chickahominy, which was further addressed in the Environment Chapter GSAs. Next slide, please. The land use goal is to achieve a pattern of land use and development that reinforces and improves the quality of life for citizens by encouraging infill, redevelopment, and adaptive reuse within the PSA, limiting development on rural and natural lands outside the PSA, and achieving the other 8 goals of this comprehensive plan. Next slide, please. And before we get to questions, I wanted to mention that we did receive your emails from last week and were able to respond to most of those questions last Friday. One item that we did want to bring up today for your consideration is a comment regarding the language choice in LU 4.4. Mr. Haldeman suggested changing encourage mixed-use developments within the PSA to accommodate. And I'll pause here for a brief discussion on this item.
My purpose for doing that is I don't think we want to be in the business of encouraging developments where there are none or where there are no intentions of having one, but rather if somebody wants to put in a mixed use development within the PSA, we should accommodate it. Obviously within the parameters of the plan.
Okay, are there any other comments on that suggestion, or would the group want to add anything else or agree with the change?
May I please have a motion to approve the change?
This is Julie, so moved.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Any
Aye.
other?
Or nay, I'm opposed.
Oh, okay. One opposed. Anybody else? Thank you. Anybody, any other changes to suggest on GSAs or the chapter? Hearing none.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Go ahead, Frank.
Yeah,
Excuse me. My fault. Your hand was up and I missed it. I beg your pardon.
okay. I forwarded a note to Tom and Tori, and that I'd like to make sure that when we meet on the 12th, and it's my understanding that that's going to be part of the agenda, that the design guidelines be brought with that packet so that we could take a look at the clean copies of the mixed use designation descriptions and the mixed use level 2. And the example that I used in my note, and I think most of you had seen that, is the consultant team had provided me a copy of their interim model. And I was interested to see what the population changes were, not only by the LU, but other areas in the county. And I didn't realize until I got a look at that the Pocahontas Trail 60, 199, 143, that's the road that goes from the Williamsburg city limits down to that interchange before you get over to the Busch Garden complex, was mixed use. And they had also placed in the population figures for that area, which ended up being something like 351. And so when we finally do come to the land use issues, obviously this modeling effort has refined those population changes of what we've already approved in the other 2035 LU. And so I'm trying to understand, it was interesting to see that the EOs are all populated. And then there are other pieces of land that are low density residential that looks like it has larger densities on it. I don't quite understand that. That's the Haskins farm up above Tohanna that surrounds the Stonehouse School. And so I'm trying to understand the new interim model and what the conclusions are for population changes for existing approved by right and the additions and what the impact is. And of course, my point on the interchanges, I'm not sure that we want a 5 or 6 story building along that trail, which is an entry into the city of Williamsburg. Anyhow, that's the one concern, and I'm sure we'll get to discuss this all in our 512. And it really is a lead up. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gavrilovic, I did it. There we go.
Thank you, Mr. Haldeman. Just to offer a couple of responses to Mr. Polster, if it's helpful, about how the modeling was done for this interim model. So in big picture, there are roughly 16 or 17 parcels that the Planning Commission Working Group recommended be changed. And everything else, every other parcel other than those 16 or 17, with the exception of the rural lands, what reflected what was in scenario A, which in turn is basically the towards 2035 land use plan designation. So in rural lands, all the parcels were changed according to scenario B, which is a lower kind of population employment number than scenario A. Again, at your direction, the working group. And then for those 17 or so parcels that the working group recommended changes, the methodology was basically where they said that the change should be the same land use that was in scenario B. We used the same population employment numbers that were in scenario B. In a number of cases, the working group recommended lower kind of intensity land uses, like converting several of them to open space. So those would have had zero population employment. And I think there were only 3 where it was different from what was in scenario B, and there was additional population employment. And for those, we just used the densities that were in scenario B. That's a lot of detail, but the big picture is that what you have in the interim results is, other than rural lands in those 17 parcels, you have scenario A, which is the current, land use plan from the current comprehensive plan. I hope that's helpful, and we can certainly dive into it more future meetings.
Thank you. Mr. Polster, do you want to wait until next week or take it now?
Oh, no. The point that Vlad's making is very valid, because both scenario A and scenario B had control totals of 43,000 some odd to make sure that we could go from the 218 population to the 245 to have 120,000. And so I'm just suggesting that when we look at the new land use figures for table LU1, we're telling the supervisors that we are planning for 120 by redesignation of lands, totals, populations within the PSA. And that's what he said. And I don't think that all of us bought in to wanting 43,000 additional folks. What we bought into was the LU applications and making judgments about whether that should be added or not, which is less than 7,000, if I understand it correctly. Now, I've laid this all out in writing in emails that have gone to Tammy, Ellen, and Vlad. So all my questions in terms of what those numbers are there. But the point is, the interim model says 43,000 plus to get us to 120. And I didn't sign up for that.
Okay, thank you. Vlad, back to you.
Sorry, just one last clarifying point on modeling as a whole. It's probably important to recognize the difference between modeling as could and should. The modeling was not intended to say this is what should be in any given parcel or in the county as a whole. It was what could be in 25 years using a set of assumptions. And the actual what should be in every parcel, comes down to a parcel by parcel rezoning or site plan application, of course. So hope that's kept in people's minds as an important point.
Thank you.
I just counter one last time, is we are going to have in the land use chapter a table LU1. And LU1 says, here are the residential and here are the EOs, and by right, it equals right now 11,000 some odd. When we reprint that LU1 table 1, I want to know what it's going to say.
I'm sure we'll find out. Thank you. I think we're through with land use, are we? Mr. Leininger? You just want approval to move it forward, move the chapter forward?
I would double check with Thomas Weissong just to make sure we got everything that he had on his list.
Mr. Weissong?
Yes, sir. If there's no further discussion on the GSAs, I think we're good to go at this point.
One last chance for a discussion? If not, may I please have a motion to for a preliminary moving of this chapter forward?
So moved. This is Jenny.
Thank you, Jenny. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. On to community character. Mr. Ribeiro and Ms. Haynes.
Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Jose Ribeiro, and together with Tori Haynes, we are the community character team. Tonight, I'll be presenting the revisions to the community character section of the comp plan. Next slide, please. So today, items for review will include revisions to the technical report, the community guidance, goals, strategies, and actions, and the community character design guidelines. Next slide, please. So revisions to the technical report. Just a moment. Okay, so there were some grammar and language improvements, and that these have been incorporated throughout the text. The goal language was incorporated into the introductory paragraph. Also, a brief discussion addressing the linkages between the design guidelines concerning the community character areas, the community character corridors, and the land use designation descriptions and standard is now located on the technical report. The character design guidelines are now also mentioned in the introduction. Also, a brief discussion regarding open space preservation was inserted on the technical report. Next slide, please. Revisions to the community guidance. Here we have some really interesting information from this process, general comments from the policies and actions questionnaire. Approximately 99% of respondents supported protecting natural lands and open space, with approximately 84% supporting outdoor recreation as one of the types. Funding priorities, from the highest to the lowest, we have protecting sensitive environmental resources, protecting and preserving the rural aspects of the county community character, expanding existing and creating new quality of life amenities, allocating resources to making our community more economically resilient, and supporting the development of affordable workforce housing. The Character Design Guidelines questionnaire provided many insights related to the county's community character, such as low-density residential development, preservation of natural surroundings, historical sites and architectural features, recreational facilities, and smaller commercial developments. Next slide, please. Goals, revisions to goals, strategies and actions. The goal has been revised slightly. In some actions, words such as ensure or require have replaced encourage. Action CC 3.2 was removed from the community character GSA and placed into the land use GSA document. Also, staff drafted a new strategy 4, along with new sub-actions which are intended to focus on community character aspects of open space preservation, and are also intended to complement but not repeat JSAs in the land use chapter. Next slide, please. So this is the revised community character goal. The county will be a good steward of the land by preserving and enhancing the scenic, cultural, rural, farm, forestal, natural, architectural, and historic qualities that are essential to the county's distinctive character, economic vitality, and the overall health and quality of life of its residents. Next slide, please. Character design guidelines. So the revised guidelines are written in a more detailed and technical language than much of the comprehensive plan text. The Planning Commission Working Group last reviewed the character design guidelines in February, and since then, a substantial amount of work has taken place to complete the guidelines. High-level changes include information regarding Route 2 and 3 of public engagement have been incorporated. Pictures and graphics have been added throughout the revised guidelines. The chapter of the revised guidelines are coordinated with the future land use map designations, and design standards have been revised and reorganized, encompassing more specific and detailed information. Next slide, please. So before questions, I just would like to note that we did receive an email from a Planning Commission Working Group member with comments and some editorial corrections for the chapter, GSAs, and character design guidelines. And those will be incorporated into the final language. At this point, does any member of the Planning Commission Working Group have any questions?
Any questions or comments? Mr. Polster.
I don't have any questions, but I wanted to tell the authors of this chapter that you did a great job, I thought, in tying both the environment, the parks, and the obviously the community character pieces together. I think that was done really well. And you can see that in the LUs that you put together too to do that. So I thought it was a great job.
I think the whole thing was extremely well written and well done. And anybody else? Mr. Ribeiro, you're looking for a preliminary vote on moving this chapter forward?
Yes, sir.
Great. May I please have a motion to that effect?
Yeah, this is Frank. I'd like to make a motion that we move this thing forward.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you very much. That's unanimous. We'll move forward to Public Facilities Chapter. Ms. Costello and Mr. Ribeiro. Mr. Ribeiro, don't go away.
Yes, don't go away. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Terry Costello, and with me presenting the Public Facilities Chapter is Jose Ribeiro. Next slide. The items for review today are the revisions to the technical report, the community guidance statement updated, and edits to the goals, strategies, and actions. Next slide. Revisions to the technical report include the goal language was incorporated into the introductory paragraph. A graphic was added to illustrate the connection between the strategic plan, the comprehensive plan, and the capital improvements program. Language was added summarizing the adequate public facilities test policy. The school enrollment figures have been updated, and information has been added on the Five Forks water treatment facility. Next slide. The community guidance document has been updated to include the third round of public engagement. General comments from the policies and action questionnaire included consistent support for enhancing quality of life amenities with a strong emphasis on walking and biking facilities, and support for walking and biking amenities in locations that increase connectivity between neighborhoods. The top 4 choices out of 10 given for protecting important land, water, and air resources were to have a final plan for future drinking water, increase water quality protections, protect stream buffers and other open spaces, and support alternative energy. Respondents were asked what are their greatest concerns relating to the quality of the county's waterways and water sources. 73% feel that new development creates more hard surfaces and increases stormwater runoff and water pollution. 61% had concerns on the availability of drinking water, and 58% had concerns of water quality during construction of new development. Next slide. With regards to the goals, strategies, and actions, the goal has been revised slightly. Some of the GSAs have been revised to provide clarity, and an action was revised to include language integrating the public facilities school test policy to the new leave behind models. Next slide. The revised public facility goal reads, provide a high quality of public facilities, including schools and public services, in a manner that balances demand for facilities and services with fiscal impacts. Next slide. Before we get to any comments or questions, I just wanted to address some of the comments that Mr. Haldeman or questions that he emailed everyone. We'll make some of the minor edits that were suggested. With regard to the adequate public school facilities test policy not taken in previous development, staff is working to address this issue through the tools developed during the comp plan, and those will be developed and refined after adoption. The second sentence of PF 3.2 of the goals, strategies, and actions tries to make this linkage. It states, continue to use the adequate public school facilities test policy consistent with the WJCC schools capacity projection methodology. Consider revising the policy to incorporate the new leave behind models. Any comments on that, or is that okay? I guess I can move on to the next one. I guess that's all right.
I'm sorry, I was muted. Terry, I apologize. I've been sitting here talking to myself for the last 2 minutes. I apologize. First of all, I accept your explanation. Thank you. That worked out well. And does anybody else have any questions or comments on this? If not, why don't you move on to GSAs? I apologize.
Okay, I just have 2 quick comments on a couple of the other. You had mentioned, do we need a goal for water access east of College Creek? Staff thinks this item is covered in the Parks and Rec chapter through the goal and action, encouraging geographic dispersion of facilities and services, and through action plan to implement the master plan, which contains a needs analysis.
Great, thanks.
Okay, and then the last one, the standard for new schools that leaves room for expansion. We think that this is covered in 1.2. And also there was a question, should the district own the architectural plans? And the information that we've received is that the schools do own the plans.
Great, terrific, thank you.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions about this chapter or these GSAs? Hearing none, may I please have a motion to move this chapter forward?
So moved, Barbara.
Thanks, Barbara. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Transportation, Mr. Leininger.
Thank you, Mr. Holland. Myself and Tori Haynes are presenting the transportation section. Next slide, please. Items for review, the revisions to the technical report, community guidance, and goal strategies and actions. Next slide, please. Some revisions that took place in the technical report were made based on the February 8, 2021 PCWG meeting. Additional language was added to the Long Hill Road corridor paragraph stating that the corridor should be monitored to determine if or when future improvements are needed. Revisions to the bicycle and pedestrian sections to highlight projects and to encourage bike racks in future developments. Map T2 and Table T3 were added to the section to reflect the results of the travel demand model based on the future land use map decisions made at the previous March PCWG meeting. Next slide, please. The community guidance document was updated similar to previous chapters related to the this one related to the transportation chapter that has been received from the scientific survey and the 3 rounds of community engagement. All the summary of all the community guidance is now included within the chapter text. Next slide, please. For the goal, strategies, and actions, revisions were made based on the February 8, 2021 PCWG meeting. Action items were added to address cumulative impacts of new and existing development, address sea level rise, and to study alternative land uses to reduce congestion along road segments. Revised strategy T3 based on comments from the PCWG and to align the strategy with the chapter text. Action item to continuously update the pedestrian accommodations master plan based on citizen input in future studies. Before we open it up to questions, I did also want to address the comments that we received over the past week. For any grammatical or spelling errors in either the GSAs or the technical report, we will address those as we move forward. For the technical report on T12, Mr. Haldeman, you have the question regarding the attainment area standards, and currently Hampton Roads is considered an attainment area, meaning we meet the NAAQS standards, allowing us to pursue CMAQ funding to maintain those standards.
That's great, thank you.
For T33, staff added the sentence to the Long Hill Road corridor vision, stating that the corridor should be monitored to determine if or when congestion levels and traffic volumes reach thresholds for future widening or improvements. I guess looking to you all if that's satisfactory addressing your comment, Mr. Holloman.
I'm okay with that for now, yes, thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else? Frank, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I'm sorry, just as a point of order, are we not going to talk about the fiscal impact analysis, which was in the public facilities section? Item 4.4 on the attachment?
I had left it open for any questions and comments, so we can go back to that. Let's finish transportation first, and then we'll go back. Frank, you bring up a good point. Tom, keep going, sorry.
Okay, no worries. That was all the revisions for the chapter text, and then we had a couple of comments on the GSAs over the past week. Mr. Polster had the comment to include the reference to the resiliency plan. Staff can make that connection. That was for GSA T1.7. For GSA action item T2.7, this is the one regarding the UDAs and the developing of small area plans. The purpose of that GSA is to direct staff to develop those small area plans of select UDAs when funds are available. prior to private development proposals. Additionally, staff would apply for any grants to make up any shortfalls in funding, but we're happy to answer any questions you may have. This was a comment from Mr. Holloman.
Nothing further?
All right.
Frank, you have your hand up?
I do. On the resiliency plan piece, one of the things that's mentioned in the chapter technical piece is the reference to the VIMS folks on the flooding. And of course, I sent those around. And so when I asked for the change on the resiliency plan, there was also another change in there that said, instead of coordinating with the VDOT, it was to coordinate the resiliency plan with VDOT projects. And so if, for example, in the transportation project piece, we've got a bridge over the Diaskin Creek, the Hicks Bridge that's going to be funded. Fixing that bridge is one thing, but the flooding associated on either side of it in the surrounding areas that ends up cutting folks off from being able to evacuate or whatever is more the concern that I have. And I've brought this up before for Governor's Land as well as the Powhatan Shores. And so that resiliency plan piece and the coordination is really to tie all those pieces that we're going to have in the environment, but that we, in fact, make sure that what we have in our projects for the VDOT, and there's 2 or 3 of them, for example, the Jamestown Bridge in this thing in the Hicks Island, is that it's just not about fixing a bridge. It's the resiliency associated with flooding and sea level rise. And that's it.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Do we need some guidance on the Morton Road extension?
Yeah, so the next thing I was going to bring up is staff would like to turn it over back to you all for a discussion and a vote on the Morton Road extension. Should the recommendation to continue to reference the project in the chapter text and on the land use map, staff would then look for a recommendation from you all regarding the funding source, keeping it or making it private, public, or a combination of private and public. So I will turn it over to you all.
Well, we had some dueling emails over the weekend, which is great. I think we covered a lot of ground with that. Does anybody have anything they want to add, or any questions? Or Ginny?
Just to weigh in, I found your arguments compelling, Mr. Chairman, so I'm with you on Morton Road extension.
Oh, thank you. Anybody else? Ms. Leverance.
Yeah, I thought arguments were compelling on both sides, but I'm inclined to take it off of the future land use map. I can always put it on later, but I'm just not inclined to encourage future development there. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Can I just ask just from Ginny and Julia, why? And I mean, it's just a curiosity part on mine, simply because, you know, we have these parcels which carry this EO opportunity. You know, as I had said before, you know, I don't know if you all travel that corridor frequently, but you know, especially on a Saturday of all days, it backs up tremendously. And you know, my thoughts are much as I articulated. And you know, I guess I would throw out for a comparative that, you know, if we didn't have the Monticello Road extension and reworked that area, all of that development would have been going strictly onto Centerville Road and Route 5, so, I don't look at road construction as in the same light that Jack does. I look at it as, how do we, we know that at some point there is going to be some sort of development through that corridor. So why wouldn't we put the tools in place to create those opportunities to have for the future? I don't expect that I will be doing another term on the Planning Commission, so I would hate to handcuff somebody in the future, without having the ability to go to somebody who is trying to develop it. Between mixed use and EO, we have restrictive language on what we want to see in those parcels that are surrounding that. Again, I just think it's a tool in a toolbox. It doesn't make it predetermined. It just gives us another opportunity if somebody came forward. For those of you who, my biggest concern is really, what happens with the pottery piece. For those of you who don't drive by the pottery very much, they are shrinking their footprint on their retail side, and it causes me, this is just my opinion, but it causes me great concern about what the future of the pottery looks like. And I would hate for somebody just to get a fire sale on that land, and then all of a sudden we have a development that just dumps out onto Lightfoot Road. And as Jack pointed out, Lightfoot Road becomes Rochambeau once you get around the corner. So I have lots of future concerns about that parcel, and I just look at retaining that as a tool in the toolkit for future planning commissioners and any possible future development in that area.
I have my hand up and seeing nobody else, so I'll just respond briefly. I'm not going to rehash everything we've already talked about. We have a flexibility in either way, whether we take it off or put it on. I think if we take it off, we enhance the value of the EO on the other side of the tracks from the pottery, the existing pottery. And this is a potentially very valuable economic engine. And if we advertise, we as a county advertise it as a fairly large flat parcel with a dedicated entrance for their use only, basically, right next to an entrance to I-64, without them having to deal with cut-through traffic, you enhance that value. You can come back 20 years from now, 5 years from now, and re-extend it. But in the meantime, you've possibly discouraged more sprawl development in the York County section, over which we have no control. Once they see that we've pulled up the rug, it may slow their residential development plans. It may also slow the developers' development plans. All of this inures to the benefit of the future owner of this EO parcel. I think that's my opinion anyway. That's how I would look at it. But that's it for me. Julie and then Frank.
Yeah, my thinking is I don't know exactly how many comprehensive plans the Moortown Road extension has been on, but nobody.
Just one.
Just one? Okay. Mm-hmm. But in 5 years, nobody's bitten. And my thought, I totally agree with Jack that I like the idea of having self-contained EO as opposed to another parallel road that would be an alternate for Route 60, because I think that truly could change and drastically change the rural character, or I mean, sure that's going to be EO, but still, I really think that could drastically change the character of that part of the county, and I just don't think that's what the community wants right now, and I don't think I want it. And yes, I've traveled Rochambeau many times to avoid 64 and 60, but that little narrow road forces me to slow down, and I think that's a good thing.
Thank you. Frank?
Yeah, thank you. I too travel that road, and I have made the comment, and the answer was here in the staff's notes for it, on whether or not it was Rochambeau or 60 that was red. And of course, Vlad thought that it was the 64, and it was. The staff confirmed it. But one of the things that I've been pretty consistent about is there's that parcel of the Moortown Hill Pleasant Farm EO that's inside of the PSA, that's on that Croker exchange. And that narrow portion of that road that Julie is talking about is there really needs to be something that's done with that. And so one of the comments that I make is that I don't have a problem of having a road go from Croker into that PSA for development, as well as having whoever develops it fixes that section of the road as part of it. And so I've asked for language that you kind of see in the Croker interchange, and you do see a reference in the description of that area about coordinating with the EO. If we can, I'd like to make sure that if we're going to take the road out, we at least make that section that's within the PSA that was part of the EO part of the Croker interchange planning, so that we don't end up with a dog's breakfast in any kind of planning and development. Thank you.
A dog's breakfast? All right, thank you.
But Frank, doesn't the and maybe I'm not tracking quite everything you're saying, but I mean the whole portion of the EO would be entitled, if I recall correctly, unless we've changed the descriptor, would be entitled to be included in the PSA once a master plan was submitted. So I don't know how you would be able to carve out a portion unless we change the whole description.
And I've tried to do that already, and I failed. So that was my compromise. So at this point, I'm probably wasting everybody's time. But the last thing I did want to say on this thing is that we have the opportunity zone down in the Grove area, and we're going to put that Skiffs Road connector in there. And we have a lot of empty, vacant land that surrounds that corridor. And so if we're looking to do some of the things that you would like to do, Tim, I think we ought to switch our way into thinking about what that should look like as an EO and remove the designation away from this. Thank you.
Anybody else? Going once? Seeing none, may I please have a motion to remove Moortown Road extension from the future land use map and any reference of the project in Table 3 or the corridor vision section of the chapter text?
Mr. Chairman, I so move.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
No.
Tim and Barbara, that's 2. The motion carries. I'd like to reflect for the minutes that Rich Kropf is also opposed to this. As he mentioned, we can't count it as a vote, but I just wanted to mention that.
No, Rich was, oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah, Rich is opposed. I mean, I'm sorry, Rich is opposed to removing the extension, is what I meant to say. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
And I'm sorry, it is Rob?
Pardon? Tim?
Is Rob still with us?
Rob left at 4:30.
Yeah, Rob had to leave.
Okay.
So it's 3-3?
I think it's 4-3. It's Jenny, Julie, Frank, and me, 4 in favor of removing it. Tim and Barb opposed. I honestly don't know how Rob felt about this. I do know, Rich made it clear in an email that he's was in favor of the extension or opposed to the removal of the extension. That's not a vote. It can't be counted as a vote, but it should be in the minutes, I think. Okay. Mr. Leininger, do you need only a vote on moving the chapter forward? Is there anything else you require of us?
Number 2. Should the corridor vision state in Moretown extension should be either private or public in the funding? We have to do number 2.
Oh, I thought we answered that in number 1, but okay.
This is Helen. I do think, and Tom and the transportation team jump in here if this is not correct, but I do believe that since the vote was to remove that corridor vision, that would effectively answer the second item there.
Yeah, I think it makes it moot, doesn't it? If anybody feels strongly about it, I don't mind voting on it, but it does appear moot to me. Okay. May I please have a motion to move this chapter forward?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we move this chapter forward.
Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Is there anything else you would like to add to it, Tim, or?
No, I just, unfortunately, we don't have the advantage of having the full group here for the full discussion. But I recognize it's legit. So I'm just opposed to moving it forward because I don't agree with it.
I don't know what to do if, we can still move, we've voted to move it forward. Well, there's still going to be a public hearing on this. So we haven't heard the last of it.
I'm fine. It's a legitimate quorum. It's a legitimate vote. I just, as I have iterated a couple of times, I object to removing it. So I feel that strongly. So I'm fine.
Good, fair enough. Thank you. Frank, we've already approved the public facilities of moving it forward, but is there something you wanted to say on the fiscal impact?
It's not the public facilities section. There was a briefing by Tischler Weiss that we didn't hear discussed.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so that information is referenced in the public facilities chapter. It now talks about I can't remember exactly which section within the chapter, but there's some sentences that were added talking about the modeling process that occurred during this comprehensive plan and the information that came out of that, and discusses how that information will be included in an appendix. That appendix is made up of those slides that you all received. So that is kind of structurally how it would be included in the comprehensive plan. Clearly, as we've all talked about going forward, the idea is certainly that the leave behind models will continue to update and refine information from there. But if there's something you all wanted to ask, be glad to take your questions, and may need to get back to you if there's some information we need to talk to Tischler Weiss about. But
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Frank, do you mean to have your hand up?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
First off, I don't see Julia on the call, but Julia Herlins from the Tisch Weissler answered all my questions very well on that. And so I think I'm okay with that. I think it's more of a methodology issue that goes back to my discussion with Vlad on the land use map. And that is that the economic analysis for both A and B was based on adding 43,117 population for both of those for it. And so if you didn't have 120,000 folks, what would the financial impact and deltas be? Would it still remain the 72 million over the 20 years, or what? Does that change it? Or it's just the methodology and just that's it. But I think what's interesting is that we started this comp plan with trying to do three things with the consultant team: the traffic analysis, which we beat to death, and the other one was the financial health and the impact of the population increases. And so if the analysis that we're going to put in the appendix is based on an analysis of adding 43,117 as opposed to something less, then I want to know what the tool's value is. And the other one is, and this was in the opening assumption, so I'm not arguing about that when this was presented to us in July. It didn't include the JCSA and the water, but yet we talk about the public facilities and the need to have water as an important thing in the strategic plan, but it's not figured in here for it. So does the addition of the cost for water, and there are at least 10 alternatives that are in hard copy that the JCSA has put before the board, of which one is $120 million plus the operating cost. But is there a reason why the final analysis would not include JCSA in it?
There is a reason, yes. And I think if it's all right, what I'd like to do is follow up with the PCWG on that to confirm some of the particulars with the Tischler by staff to make sure it's a completely accurate answer to get back to you.
Right, and so the same thing that applies on the land use is whatever goes forward from the Planning Commission to the board is going to revise that table once again, and that also would change the numbers for the analysis.
Okay.
Financial analysis.
Great, thank you. Jenny?
Thank you, Jack. I wanted to, perhaps my timing is bad, but I wanted to query the point that you made about Long Hill widening and your email saying that it should not be widened all the way down to Centerville Road, and whether there was going to be any discussion of that.
The answer to my question or my concerns was in the response that was made that any further extension will face the county will analyze the need going forward based on traffic and the like.
Okay. Sorry.
I think that was the answer that at least it satisfied me. But
okay, then I am not up to date. Thank you very much.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I mean, I had several reasons for not wanting it, but it's their mood also at the moment. So,
well, I agree with you. I mean, I drive that section of Long Hill quite often coming out of Ford's Colony, and I just, it seems unnecessary to me. But anyway, thank you.
Okay, thanks. We're down to the comprehensive plan name. Leanne King, Ellen Cook.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hey, Ellen. Did you want to say a few opening words or?
Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, please go ahead. Thank you.
Sure. If you wouldn't mind letting me share screen.
Leanne, I can barely hear you. If you could get a little closer to the mic, please.
Does that help at all?
Yes, it does.
Is that louder? Okay, I'll try to also just speak a little louder. And then I'm going to share a screen here and pull up on this information we're going to talk from. Can everybody see that okay? I'll zoom in so it's a little larger. hopefully you can see it. Let me know if you have any trouble seeing that right now. Thank you all for providing different examples and ideas and thinking about what the name of the plan is going to be. This obviously is an important decision to be made, and it was very helpful to get your various feedback on and ideas for what the comprehensive plan name should be. In the packet that went out for today's meeting, you had a list of the 15 proposed plan names provided by various members, and there was also a request to provide any feedback on different names that you wanted to support moving forward with. And we got 2 pieces of input that are identified here on the, actually, I guess technically 3 pieces of input from 2 people shown on the screen here. One preference for Our County, Our Future, JCC 2021 Comp Plan, and one preference for Realizing Our Shared Vision. So maybe I could pause here and see if anybody has any questions about the process, or if anyone has any plan name preferences that they would like to identify during the call tonight. If you want to put your vote in for a different one or one of the ones that's been identified, this is an opportunity to do that.
Well, this is Julie. I want to thank the brave souls who took a stab at a choice, because that certainly makes it easier for the rest of us. I'm inclined towards number 6, Our County, Our Future. I like that.
Okay.
This is Barbara Knoll. I'm for number 6 as well.
Okay.
I'm okay with 6, Frank.
I already sent in my vote and it was for number 6. So this is Jack,
Thanks, Jack.
just so you don't double count.
Any other reactions?
It's Tim. I was sort of preferential to 3, which is charting our course. And, you know, I was just thinking, cause since we were engaged 2045, you know, I was thinking, you know, like Destination 2045, and that ties into the county's logo and everything with the charting our course. But, you know, but beyond that, that's my only comment.
Any other reactions? Okay. Well, I know not all of you are on the call today, but it does seem like there's some traction with moving forward with Our County, Our Future, JCC 2021. If you all are comfortable, we can move forward with that as the plan name, or if you would like to kick it back to the project team, we're happy to kind of think about this a little bit further and see if there are any ways to tie the ones that have been identified as kind of the preference into one name. I mean, that's another option. So whatever you think it makes the most sense for us to move forward with this.
When do you need it, Leanne? When?
We have some flexibility on that. Ideally, we would probably have it wrapped up before we go to public hearing draft stage. So in the next few weeks would be good to finalize it, but it doesn't have to be decided necessarily, you know, today or this week.
If we kick this into, we're meeting next Monday, are we not?
Mm-hmm.
It's next Wednesday.
Wednesday, yeah.
Next Wednesday. Would that disrupt anything if we waited until then and the other 2 guys were back, or?
I'll defer to Ellen on just the agenda and schedule, but I don't think it would be disruptive in terms of choosing the name. Ellen, is there any reason it might be difficult to put on the agenda?
No, I think we could work with that.
Everybody okay with that? We'll be prepared to make a final decision next Wednesday, a week from Wednesday. Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
And if anybody has any interim thoughts or reactions that they want to share over email, that's helpful, and we can incorporate those and share them at the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's it for the prepared agenda. Any other items for discussion? Jenny?
Just a question on the schedule. I have somehow I put on my calendar the 25th of May for a Board of Supervisors meeting. Is that, it seems odd to have it on a Tuesday, which is why I'm questioning what my calendar says.
You're
right?
absolutely right. It's a joint meeting with the Planning Commission Working Group and the Board of Supervisors. I think it's 1 o'clock, Ellen, is that right?
Yes, yeah, it's scheduled to start at 1, and once we get closer to the meeting, we'll know where on the agenda it is. But I think typically everyone arrives at 1 just to be sure they're there in time. So, yep.
It's the 25th, right?
It's the whole PCWG.
That's my understanding.
Yes, it's on May 25th, and it's the whole PCWG. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'm certainly entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thanks, Barb. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Good meeting.
Thank you, Jack.